Hi, everyone. This is Nick Berbulis. I'm the editor of Educational Theory. This is another in a series of interviews that we're doing with authors of papers appearing in the journal. Today's guest is Shiying Li, who has a really wonderful paper called Education for Robust Self-Respect in an Unjust World. This paper was the recipient of the 2023 Outstanding Paper Award from the Fall NAEP Conference, the North American Association for Philosophy and Education. NAEP and Ed Theory co-sponsor an outstanding paper award at each fall conference. We also sponsor similar awards with the PES Philosophy of Ed Society and with the John Dewey Society. So congratulations, Shiying, on receiving this recognition. It really is a wonderful paper.
Thank you so much.
So let's start with the question of self-respect itself. One of the things that's sort of the starting point of this paper is that self-respect is not only a valuable educational goal or outcome in itself, but also because it's a condition for other important educational goals or outcomes that we also want to try to promote. Can you talk a little bit more about what you mean by self-respect and why it's important in this broader context?
Sure. So, in the literature on self-respect in the past decades, theories have proposed many different kinds of self-respect. I find some of those distinctions to be helpful, and those are the ones that I explain more in this paper. So the notion of standing self-respect, which is more concerned with one's moral status, one's basic duties and rights. There's another kind of self-respect that's important and different from standing self-respect, which is what theories have called standards of self-respect. Standard self-respect. So, standard self-respect refers to one's convictions about one's abilities, the value of one's projects and goals. They could be moral or non-moral convictions. So in the first part of this paper, I would like to highlight and explain the political importance of providing social bases of self-respect, especially in an unjust society. So I make partly these arguments by using the notion of equal citizenship. So I think having the capacity to maintain robust self-respect and also the correct kind of respect, which is thinking oneself as a moral equal as others, is a psychologically necessary precondition of equal citizenship. Equal citizenship plays an important role in many strands of liberal political theories, including Rawlsian theories, relational egalitarianism, and political liberalism. I also use some of the work, previous work in the field of relational egalitarianism and political liberalism, which links equal citizenship with mutual respect among citizens. And mutual respect among citizens is considered by many as the criterion for state legitimacy. So by making this series of arguments, I want to convince my readers of the political urgency and necessity of this task of providing social bases of self-respect. And this is a task that is situated in a non-ideal situation. So a lot of the work, especially from the Rawlsian tradition, has talked about social bases of self-respect in a well-ordered society or just society in a Rawlsian sense. And people usually think that if a theory of justice is reasonable, a well-ordered society governed by this principles of justice that are reasonable should guarantee the self-respect or the correct self-respect of all of its citizens. But the society that we live in, or many of the societies that have existed, fall short of the standards of justice according to Rawlsian theories of justice or many other mainstream influential theories of justice. So I also want to highlight the importance of this non-ideal theorizing task of looking for or identifying social bases of self-respect in an unjust world. That's part of what it means in this part of the title of my paper.
Yeah, thank you for that, Shiying. So you've mentioned two or three things there that I want to go back through and go through one by one. So in terms of sort of the value of self-respect, in terms of equal citizenship, one of the points you make that I think is pretty interesting is that people have to have self-respect in order to be able to extend respect toward others. You want to say a little bit more about that and how that's connected?
Yeah, so this notion of self-respect that I employ in this paper is conceptually, it involves this part of treating others as equals. So it's not just when saying that having robust self-respect is kind of a shorthand of having the correct conviction of one's moral status as equal to everyone else, and also having the so the standards part of the self-respect, having the correct convictions about the value of one's projects and goals, and correct convictions about one's abilities. So this notion of self-respect that I employ kind of just entails that having the appropriate kind of self-respect requires an individual to see others as moral equals. I think this is a precondition of seeing others as equal and free citizens, which is the central idea of equal citizenship and mutual respect among citizens. And yeah, I hope this is
Yeah, I think
makes
that's
it more
clear.
clear.
Yeah, thank you. So let's take the second point, which is what you call the social basis of self-respect. You draw from Rawls here and other sources as well. Can you say more about this? We'll get to the unjust component in a second, but in a sort of an affirmative way, what is the social basis of self-respect, and what kinds of social and political structures are conducive to the kind of robust self-respect that you're talking about?
Yeah, sure. So traditional Rawlsian theories, as I said earlier, they're more focused on the ideal theorizing and the well-ordered society. So there's this, it's Rawls first proposed this idea, and it is a pretty reasonable idea that a society that is governed by the two principles of justice in the Rawlsian theory, so including equal liberty, fair equality of opportunity, and the difference principle. So these a basic structure of the society governed by these principles would just guarantee the self-respect of its citizens. And the rationale behind it, briefly speaking, is these principles of justice express or make it possible for citizens interacting with each other in free and equal ways. So I'm not, so we have been talking about the ideal case, well-ordered society, but as we can see, the basic structure of the society we're in and a lot of the existing societies are not governed by or fully abide by the principles of justice and marked, a lot of societies are marked by huge inequalities, including economic, political, and social inequalities. So I think a more difficult and a more urgent task for theorists is actually to identify social bases of self-respect in unjust and adverse circumstances. So these social bases include motivational, epistemic, emotional resources that help people to maintain robust self-respect in adverse and unjust conditions. And I do not aim to provide an exhaustive list of all the possible social bases of self-respect in this paper. And I think this is an issue that that is worth more attention and further work on. But to give a quick example, so in a society that protects citizens' free expression or political freedoms to some extent, the marginalized and oppressed groups are able to gather together and form organizations and participate in political movements, participate in collective actions, and those could be considered as social bases of self-respect in an unjust world. And for this paper, we'll probably get to it later on. I want to more focus on the realm of education, how the system of schooling could provide some of the motivational, epistemic, and emotional resources that help people, especially those who are more disadvantaged in the society, to maintain appropriate level of self-respect.
That is the next topic in the outline. So let's talk about the role of education, specifically schooling.
Cool. So before focusing on the system of schooling, I also provide some reasons for why we should be focusing on this realm instead of, or why the realm of education, or more specifically the system of schooling, should take on major responsibilities for providing social bases of self-respect. I provide some discussions on how other realms of our lives, including personal relationships or the family or the workplace, social norms and cultures, and also, as we just talked about, the basic structure fail to provide social bases of self-respect, and the difficulties of providing a social basis of self-respect in those other realms. So this kind of paved the way for our focus on the system of schooling. So I do not make I do not want to dictate educators or just tell educators what exactly should be done in schools, in classrooms, to pursue this goal of securing robust self-respect. But I highlight certain areas of or aspects of schooling that are, I think, especially relevant to this goal. So that I start from curriculum, and I argue for the inclusion of teaching materials on topics that are nowadays considered as controversial moral and political issues, topics on social justice or social stigmas, topics on self-respect itself, to be helpful resources for students to more critically reflect on the factors that affect their self-respect in this world. I'm not able to get into all of the details, but I just want to highlight all these aspects that are relevant. So in addition to curriculum, pedagogies, that's another really important aspect. So I talked about the importance of discussion, and part of the really important role that discussion plays is to promote students' abilities to deliberate together with others who come from different backgrounds and having different views on these controversial issues, and having good discussion with others that demonstrate open-mindedness, intellectual humility, and all these some other epistemic virtues. So I also point out the importance of the teachers modeling respectful and equal interactions and relationships for the students. And this can also include intersubjective justification. There's some prior work on intersubjective justification. Also, I use some empirical research, really interesting, wonderful empirical research on, for instance, the importance of collaborative discussion rather than adversarial discussion. So especially in a discipline like philosophy, traditionally we structure our discussions in class as some sort of debate. There's students strive to be the winner in a discussion and to defeat the other side who has a different view. But I think a lot of people are realizing the shortcomings of this kind of discussion, or this kind of style of discussion. And with the help of more empirical research, I think we can do better at, as educators, we can do better at structuring and leading discussions. So besides these more traditionally aspects that are theories and practitioners have paid a lot of attention to, I also want to point out the importance of teacher-student and student-student relationships, the importance of forming a community, and the importance of emotions. So emotions, that's a more controversial topic in the realm of education, especially in the discipline of philosophy. A lot of people want to that's a lot of people don't want to acknowledge the role that emotions may play in rational deliberation, or think of emotions as some sort of obstacles to rational deliberation. I think it may be the case sometimes, that may be true, but in classrooms, given our educational goals, including the goal of promoting self-respect, emotions actually are important because of the link between self-respect and many moral emotions such as shame and guilt. I argue for a more nuanced approach to emotions. Sometimes educators may be required to elicit certain emotions, including moral emotions, through the use of materials, and not just reading materials, but all kinds of materials. And sometimes educators may be required to help students to process certain emotions, to soothe certain emotions, or to more critically evaluate certain emotions. So I think this part of the discussion can also benefit from more empirical research. The last part that I think is more controversial is that a lot of people think of political activism as something that should that is separate from the goals of education or our appropriate goals of education. But political, I'd like to invite people to think more carefully about this kind of assumption, especially given our educational goal of promoting self-respect, and also some empirical research pointing at the helpful role that political involvement and political engagement have on developing robust self-respect. So those are the main aspects that I've talked about in this paper.
Yeah, thank you very much. Shiying, thank you for this overview of the paper. There's a link here to the full article. There's much more there than we could get to in this brief conversation, but I think you've really touched on the high points and extremely clearly laid out the argument of the paper, as well as some of the educational consequences or repercussions of this argument. It's a pleasure talking with you. Again, congratulations on winning the Outstanding Paper Award, and thank you so much for sending your paper for submission to educational theory.
Thank you for having me. Bye.